So this talk tonight will be from me as a total layperson when it comes to textiles and fabric and apparel. And as you can see, the extent of my fashion is my Vans here. But I'm very curious about all types of manufacturing and design. He knows a whole lot about textiles, which I know nothing about. We all wear clothes, so we should all probably know a little bit more about them. And so with that, let's welcome Taylor Shupe.
Thank you.
And I always like meeting someone. Yes, thank you.
Very eternal man.
Yeah. I always like meeting people for the first time when they bring me samples to play with. And so.
You want to show him this first?
Oh, he made me socks with my name on it. It was better
socks.
than his name on it. That would have been awkward. And he brought me this, which is made out of recycled denim, which we're going to experiment with some sort of acoustical boards. This, which is made out of all things recycled parachutes, and we think we're actually going to be able to do some coffee tables and sofas out of this kind of board. And I work a lot with sheet goods. I've done a ton of projects out of plywood. So I already have designs that can be applied to sort of flat 4x8 sheets, even if they are made from sea urchins, like we saw last night. So super excited about that. FutureStitch and the next project is doing a lot with recycling fabrics. And I've watched you in the last hour talk to two people that know about textiles. I'm actually going to leave with the different questions. The question I heard from both the head of design for Dickies and Lee Jeans, Shaw over there, who you'll meet later, and from Verge, who was last night's speaker, was, oh, recycling. Are you doing chemical or mechanical? Mm-hmm. I don't know what those means. Why would someone that knows a lot about fashion, textile, and apparel immediately ask what kind of recycling you're doing, chemical or mechanical?
So a chemical typically is used to be able to separate the raw materials, to be able to create, ideally, the most virgin type of feedstock that you can get. Mm-hmm. So it would be like chemically taking a poly cotton and removing the cotton from the poly.
Just dissolving it?
Yeah, it could be a dissolve, it could be a chemical separation. There's one company in Europe that's not doing good chemical separation. Most of the chemical solvents out there destroy one, so you can use the other. So the problem with all of these materials, almost everybody in here is wearing some sort of composite. There's a blend, right? And when you go to recycle those things, you get massive degradation with at least one of those things, and it's really hard to pull the other one out and then be able to treat both things to get to a place where they're equal quality.
Gotcha.
So like, for example, poly is very easy to recycle. You probably heard like, these pants are made from 100 plastic bottles or whatever, right? Or nylon 6/6, that's a good one that can be recycled over and over again. Almost everything these days has some sort of a blend, whether it's with spandex or whether it's with a cotton, and that just complicates the entire supply chain because when you distill it down, if you have two different materials that you're trying to rework, they have different properties that then need different treatments for dyeing, for spinning. Like a polyester might need heat, pressure, and dye stuffs. Cotton might only need dye stuffs. And so we've created a very complicated supply chain around leveraging multi-materials into one garment.
Right, so like in the woodworking world, technically you could say particle board and MDF is recycled because it's made from sawdust. You're not recycling much past there because at that point it's so much glue and so little wood. Right. And the fibers are way shorter than they are with like plywood. So it's kind of interesting. It's funny in woodworking, no one ever calls MDF recycled. I guess fashion, because it's more kind of consumer facing. People are trying, like I remember Rothy's, I did like a partnership with them. They're like, oh, each one of these shoes has this many water bottles and stuff like that. Interesting. So I've been to your San Clemente factory, or the small part of it. You were 3D knitting. Now I've done 3D printing. Can you kind of explain what 3D knitting is and like why someone would use that as opposed to buying fabrics and cutting and sewing?
Yeah, so if I were to liken this to like a concrete build, for example, making apparel historically would be like pouring a massive slab and then
cutting
chipping away at it to form your rooms. Like that's all cut and sew apparel. It doesn't sound very efficient. For 3D knit, there's almost no waste at all.
Gotcha.
So you're able to use the machine. We use circular knit. There's also a flatbed knit. Circular knit's for like underwear, socks. Flatbed knit might be for like a Nike pant, right, where you still see the seams. But essentially 3D knit is multi-axis, and you can go beyond 0. So you're creating different pockets or seams or whatever with 1 lead or 2 leads of material that go through the entire thing with almost 0 cuttings.
So it's weird, like in construction or any kind of like furniture fabrication, and obviously it's because my algorithm is trained me to see that way, I'm always seeing like, this is a new type of machine. This is a robot that can carve stone. This is a CNC that can cut sheet goods and then assemble them. This is a robot that can 3D print a building. I've always kind of assumed whenever I hear about fashion, I hear like 2 things in recent discourse. 1, I hear about how wasteful and bad fast fashion is. 2, I still hear that it's saying, oh, it's all done in sweatshops. That's how you're getting to sort of the low prices. What have been the sort of technological things that have have changed the way garments are actually produced? Is it getting more automated and less sort of hands-on? And what are kind of like the technological innovations of like the last 10 years? Like, what are the machines you geek out about?
Well, it's funny because I guess the machines I geek out about are not the new ones.
Oh. That's like the old loop knit ones?
Yeah, loop wheel in Japan and Germany, where they use gravity to knit. And you can create like really dense, beautiful knits that then don't warp and don't shrink. So yeah, we've become really good at making things. And so traditional cut and sew now has become highly automated with robots, CNC and different types of machinery. And so you now have like an abundance essentially of fashion. Fashion's become so cheap as a result of all of the automation. Like if I were to take you through a sock factory, and if anybody's ever in Oceanside, California, let me know, because looking at socks is actually kind of fun.
More than I thought it would be.
It's not, yeah. People like imagine it being like a sewing machine or somebody like behind the scenes knitting
Well,
them,
you also showed me
know?
really extreme socks, right? Because he was like, okay, we're going to show you the sock factory. And I'm like, yeah, all right, let's do it.
Can we stay on socks for a
yeah.
second? Is anybody wearing socks? We got some sock people. I'll teach you a couple things about socks that might change your perception a little bit. My first company.
Way to support your industry.
I'm sorry, guys. It's a dirty, sweaty day, and they're all gross and dirty. Okay, so the first way you know if your sock is good quality is how big your toe box is. So the number one thing that sock suppliers do is they shrink the toe box. You have stance socks on. I appreciate that. Well done. You see how big that toe box is? Okay. All right, let me just use this.
You just said you had a huge box.
Okay, so Sheila, are you okay with this? Are you ticklish? Okay, so see, her toe box really starts right there at the bridge of her toes. And what she has here is a seamless toe. So if she raises her toes in her boots, she doesn't feel a seam at all. Now it looks indented, but you don't see that baconing effect that you get like with Nike socks or whatever. But how big this is really is gonna predict how comfortable it is on your toes. So the smaller it is, the more like tight it's actually gonna be on your toes, and you'll have less foot splay. It's bad for your feet. Another thing is the arch band. If there's additional elastic, it adds to the stamina in your feet. So this right here, another one is your gore seam. So what happens in the toe and the heel, and this is why suppliers skimp, is the machine goes from rotations, RPMs, down to 180s, like this. Are you still good? Yeah. Okay, so my machine time goes to like 5x what it was on the tube. And so the first thing they do is they try to make this smaller, so that way the entire knitting time, which is how we grade ourselves, knitting minutes, right, goes down dramatically. So when you look at your socks in your drawer...
Thank you for our volunteer here.
Thank you. That's a telltale. Those are telltale signs. But yeah, so Italian knitting machine, we only use Italian knitting machines because, I guess back to your question, I do like machines that solve steps. Mm-hmm. That's always really helpful. And the reason why we use Lenati knitting machines is because they have a toe closing device on them. So as it's being knit, or when it's finished knitting, an arm comes over, pulls it off, turns it inside out with a vacuum, and then it stitches each loop stitch by stitch so you don't feel the seam. So now I don't need somebody else seaming it on the other end. It's cheaper to do that. Mm-hmm. These machines are expensive, but it eliminates a lot of error and obviously creates a better product.
So one of the things we got really excited about...
I still want to answer more if you
go
want.
ahead. No, please.
So I think the biggest issue is now you have, over the past 20 years, consumers are buying 100% more fashion than they used to. And this is not utilitarian. This is vanity, right? As fashion typically is. The average consumer is disposing of 60 pounds per year in the United States. And it's contributing almost like 10% of our greenhouse gases. Top 5 polluters of all industries. Right? It's like, I guess, third behind big oil, which is pretty nutty. So how I look at it is like this waste stream is actually a massive opportunity, because I'm not only a brand guy, I run the factories, and so I understand sort of each process or each step and how much labor and how much energy and how much capital it takes to get from, cotton that's picked in Pakistan to a fine yarn that I'm making in Taiwan to a knitting that comes out of Oceanside, right? So the idea is, how do we take waste and make it an economically viable feedstock? It's not like, how do I save the planet, which is obviously an amazing endeavor, and yes, we should all try to save the planet. But it's like, you have all of this energy and all of this resource. Is there a way to take all of that and form something new by leveraging our creativity and ingenuity? And that's what we're really focusing on at FutureStitch these days.
So the fast fashion, it's probably not specific to fast fashion. It feels like fast fashion is like the recent kind of thing, but it's been a general trend towards consumption in general and that kind of waste. So that waste is stockpiling. Where does that waste typically go? Do you have to go overseas to get that? Because, look, I only know what I see on the internet, but it's like, I know with like plastics, you hear these stories of like freighting ships getting like sent over to like Africa to sort out plastic that then maybe gets recycled and sent back over here. Where does the sort of, how do you go about sourcing that raw materials? Is it like B2B connections from that? Is there kind of like dumping grounds just for this? Is there special landfills just for textiles? Is there medium companies, or you're just using your kind of connections with other garment producers?
So the purest way, so when you think about waste, it doesn't start after wear, it actually starts at ideation. So how many rounds of prototypes, how many materials you're buying, what your minimum order quantity requirements are, and how much inventory you're purchasing. The inventory glut is a huge issue. And what happens oftentimes is they destroy it, especially if you're like a luxury brand that doesn't want a discount, or you send it off to some third world country.
Gotcha.
Right, so there's not a clear path for, I think, getting rid of old inventory that everybody relies on, and it ends up in a landfill. 80% of apparel purchased is not resold, even though if you look at the younger consumer, they're more willing to go into a thrift store than into an LVMH store. And the resale market is growing at 3x, which is actually something that we should be really hopeful about. They're finding a lot more joy, because fashion's become so commoditized. They're now finding joy in the experience of finding something unique and different. So that's why these secondary markets, third-party retailers are actually growing. So 80% is not resold, and only about 20% is actually recycled. So the majority of it gets sent overseas, and the majority of that gets burned. And so it's incinerated. And some people use it for fuel. Obviously with polymers, it actually is a pretty good fuel source, but highly pollutive, very similar to coal. It's petrol, after all.
Nothing sounds more romantic than polyester fireside chat, right?
Yeah.
When you say, I heard you say it earlier, you were talking about like mechanically orienting the fibers vertically.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so when you let's start with like a virgin material like a cotton. There's about 5 or 6 steps before you get to a yarn. And one of the key steps is taking this kind of puffy ball that has, fibers going all over the place and straightening them. So it's a combing process that orientates them in the right ways. And then afterwards, you can create the sliver, and after that, you can create the yarn, and you can apply more and more tension, and the more twists per meter you apply to it, the finer it can be, the stronger it can be. Now, down to vertical orientation, the sort of objective for that was like, how can we replace foam? Because foam is something that's really hard to recycle. Right. And it's in everybody's midsole. Yep. Sometimes even the outsole. Sometimes you're wearing a Croc, which is terrible. She had an injury wearing a Croc, which is why she's in that. So I don't recommend it. But the foams are really tough. So it's like, can we use a polymer that can be recycled? But can we take, instead of laying it flat like a felt, could we then verticalize it? Yeah. And compact it, and now you have rebound by the very nature of the elongation that occurs on that fiber, which is an elastic.
So what is
fiber.
the mechanism? Is there like a little robot crab that's grabbing things and turning them this way, or how do you?
Yeah, we have a crustacean farm.
Is it like static electricity? How do you move them?
It's all just based on opening them
Gotcha.
and then combing them.
Gotcha.
And
so it's just all like rotational machines with like brushes or combs and.
yeah, so what that, a lot of people don't know this this term, but those materials that are like felts or even like the magic erasers used on your wall, it's called non-woven. It's the same material or same process that you see with like booties at the hospital, usually hospital aprons, super cheap manufacturing. That to me is like the ultimate future of textile manufacturing, because it's like you're printing the material. There's some, there's still some issues to solve, like stretch, movement, things like that. But all of that is a non-woven process, including what we call foam-free foam, where we change the direction of the filament to create the rebound.
Gotcha. Any questions from the audience about recycling textiles, or even from any of your employees that want to put you on the
any
spot?
hardball questions? We have a group of 5 of us, 6 of us here.
One of the things that I think is interesting is look, the world's so vast and complicated that it's hard to understand even what you're consuming. We are somehow selective about the things that we buy to varying degrees. Some of us are very careful about what we buy to eat. Some of us are more picky about our clothes. Some are very picky about our furniture. We're all making choices. And it's funny that our choices, for the most part, unless it's something we've really geeked out and gone deep into, is pretty surface level. I kind of pay attention to nutrition a little bit. I pay a lot of attention to the tools and materials I'm going to use, and then everything else is de minimis amount of attention. And it's kind of not because I don't care, it's just because I feel like my brain's already full. So I'm always excited when I meet someone that's gone down the rabbit hole of something that I definitely consume, textiles. I'm really excited about some of the felts and the building products, because those are things I can use. Should we expect timeline? Where should we be getting updates around the sort of stuff you're doing? Is it all just through sort of FutureStitch on Instagram, and then launches will come from there? And when can we start to expect that some of the makers here can get their hands on some things like this?
Is this a final question?
Yeah.
Can I talk more?
Yeah.
Okay with me
Yeah, you
more?
can talk all you want.
Because I think there's so what we're trying to do here is really abnormal, and I don't know if it's going to work or not. The reason why consumers are buying so much isn't just because stuff's cheaper. That's a big part of it. But it's also because there's these massive marketing machines that are promoting consumption, and fashion companies have gone from 20 years ago to a 4-drop model to now 12 drops, sometimes 48 drops. You go to a Xi'an, it's 365 drops. And so it's creating more and more sort of interest in buying new. Now, the idea behind what we're doing with Seconds, which is a new brand I'm launching since we sold Stance last year, is to sort of challenge that model and create something that's fully circular, where it's cool, because that's really important. It's not let's save the planet, because unfortunately that has a short shelf life. I would love nothing more to do that, but if you look at all of the eco and or social good companies, they tend to fizzle out. They tend to be very trend-based, and then they're gone. So you have to lead with product, and product isn't always what is the best product, but it's more about who has the best story, right? So what I'm trying to do is combine human with, the product in a sort of physical, metaphysical, or opposite way. So what we're doing is we have everybody we've hired for all of our factories here are all second chance people. So we hire from the system, and we've created a mission of
Criminal
ours,
justice system, right?
correct,
To be clear,
to challenge that system, because we think that's probably the biggest area of waste in the United States, right? You have 10% of our people who have served time, and we're paying upwards of $100,000 per inmate per year, at least in California. And recidivism, which means going back, is 80% for men in 3 years. And we know the justice system isn't perfect, right? There's a lot of prejudice within that system. But this prison system is a real problem for everyone. You have all this, I guess, economic potential that exists there that most employers would never explore, which is why they have a 40% unemployment rate. So my thing is, hey, let's prove that with the right culture, the right people, the right product, the right benefits, the right pay, that we can change those numbers. So we are 4 years in, 0% recidivism. Not one person's gone back. And so that to me, when I think about what success, why success matters, or what's next for success, is something that I'm really proud of. Now, the idea would be, can we combine these human stories of sort of the salvage, or the art of salvage, salvaging your past. We have this term, heal with scars, showing your scars, right? I love what we're doing here. A lot of this is salvage. A lot of what you make is, almost everything you make is salvage. There's something so beautiful about taking something that has imperfections and be able to apply your ingenuity to it and own those, imperfections, right? In a way that makes it so beautiful. And so what I'm trying to do with this next brand is be able to celebrate and even revere the after, right? The transformation, the salvation as the business model, not as a greenwashing effect. Now, if I convince consumers that we make the most epic knitwear and artisan wear, and we can do it in a way that we build it aligned with the planet and the people, meaning it's built for durability, and you can hopefully monetize it over time, then would it be unique and cool enough for the consumer to keep it in their wardrobe, and would that lifespan exceed the current lifespan of 6 months for a t-shirt, 12 months for a hoodie? That's where I think you could make an actual impact. And so what we're trying to do moving forward is be the first zero waste company with the lens of taking this feedstock and applying imagination to it every step in the manufacturing process to create something new. So yeah, we replace plywood at a quarter of the cost. It's more malleable than plywood. It's more hydrophobic than plywood. We're building out I bought a mortuary. I know I sound fucking crazy. But I thought it was like no other place could tell the story of dead stock.
Awesome stained glass windows.
Beautiful. It's iconic.
Came with a giant refrigerator.
Yeah. Walk-in freezer. No, but I think about the story, right? Everything comes down to the story. And I think if I was to teach kids in school these days, it would be less about being, knowing AI and more about how you story tell, because that's really what works anywhere and everywhere. And I think always will. But anyway, back to that idea. We have that, and then when we was talking about the property off Ortega, we're going to create an artist commune, and everything's going to be salvaged from the land into woodworking and metalworking and all these sort of things. The idea we're creating beautiful artisanal workwear, but then with the materials that they can actually use. And if you look at where money's going, and as an entrepreneur, you always want to look at that when you're starting a business, Sheila, right? Where is that all money going? And you try to attach yourself to that flow versus trying to create a new market, which is always just too expensive, or tagging on to an existing market that's stagnant, and it's always dollars for dollars, and it's really hard to make an impact. I think about the tradespeople and what's happening. It's like the silver lining with AI and data centers is like there's more construction workers.
Yeah. Electricians are doing well.
More people working with their hands. But I'm like, if I can be that and supply materials that not only can replace plywood at a quarter of the cost, but also can replace the felting for their jackets. I can create knitwear that's stronger than wovens. Now I have something that's more comfortable, that's more luxurious, but also beats the durability of, say, a Carhartt weave. Then I think I'm serving the right demo, and I think that demo is going to become more and more tastemaker, which is why, and I think it's proof today with you doing this for the first time, Design Week, and having such a onslaught of interest. People want to know how to do what you do. People are now aspiring to build things with their hands, which I think is so fucking awesome and gives me a lot of hope. So anyway, back to that, like my whole focus here is taking all the brands I have right now with all my factories, which is New Balance and Vuori and FootJoy and all these others, taking their waste first, building beautiful objects out of it to basically sell the story of waste is beautiful. You can use AI and you can get something that's perfect, but is that beautiful? I think the beauty is in humanity and the imperfection. It's the mistakes we make, and it's getting up again, right? It's a getting up again story. So if we can tell that effectively, then I think there's something here that can actually make a fundamental change to fashion and how it's consumed.
I always think of it as like we have like projects that we called like fried rice projects, where you take all the leftovers, throw them together, but fried rice is pretty good. You can do a lot with leftovers and kind of combine them and make something delicious.
And on that note, like my feedstock cost me 20 cents on the dollar. So the real secret is like how
compared
can we
to
take,
what, like 20, like
for virgin.
Got
Okay, if I'm going to buy a virgin comb cotton
20%
yarn,
of the cost.
yes, 20% of the cost.
Gotcha.
So now I can value engineer it. So now I can take it and I can twist it deeper. Now I can create different types of brushing. I can use different additives. I can make a premium material that's even better than the virgin because I've found a model where the economics actually work for the planet and for people. That I think is the kind of the secret
So
sauce.
let me see if I'm grasping that correctly. So because you're getting the raw material for less, that allows you to invest more in things like the more expensive knitting processes. That so you can go hot. You can offset you can take that economic advantage of the cheap feedstock.
Yep.
And then that allows you to competitively invest in better fabrication techniques to then amplify the quality for that things while still being price competitive.
Yep.
Gotcha. That's actually like the most sustainable thing that I've heard in the talk, right? Like that's actually where sustainability comes from at scale. It comes from an economic advantage that embeds quality into a process so that it can actually perpetuate beyond being a Herculean task of morality. And I've been involved with sustainability for like 20 something years, and it's like these swings of like being excited about the promise of something and then disappointed by the sort of reality of it. Now, obviously that's human nature in general. Like you should expect that. Like and the good news is people still keep trying. Like, and you're gonna make a heroic effort at it. Other people will too, across the industries. And I think as consumers, it's always good to hear this kind of candid talk, right? That's not through the lens of Instagram. And that's one of the reasons why it was so great to have Verge here talking about like murdering sea urchins and turning them into countertops. Yeah, it's like, this is kind of what I've always wanted with sort of like creative get-togethers and stuff, is hear people be both equally passionate as they are candid. So we're going to be having some drinks later. Oh, Jesse.
What do you suggest the average person does with their clothes that they wear into the ground? I'm thinking about Ben and his pants that are just when they're not viable, like the thrift store can't sell them. What do we use them?
They were good as fill, always fill. They were good as sculptural casts like Matt did with his old socks today. There's always, the thing about knit and weaves is it's great for straining, it's sifting, it's great. It can even like density like that could be good for water purification on a camp.
Really?
Yeah, camping trip. There's a lot of things that you could do with textiles. I think in the end, you can shred it up and you can do some really cool stuff. Like you can actually felt at home. It's really easy to do. Yeah, I bet you have. Totally. Yeah. And you can even microwave felt and create like really cool things like dishes and whatnot with felts.
I bet this smells amazing.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So that answer was regardless of the fabric construction or composition, correct?
The answer to her?
Just about like within reason for a purpose, of course, but just about.
Yes, I would say yes.
So when you were referring to unrecyclable fabrics earlier, is that just like from the chemical perspective?
That's more from the chemical perspective. And the mechanical side is even harder, but mechanical is way better in terms of like pollution. You don't have, acids going into the water table. But yeah, I would say the best way to do it is mechanically, but you can't take a nylon from a cotton mechanically, which is why you need the chemical. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm struggling to understand, like if I buy a pair of pants from the Gap that are from China that are recycled cotton, I was envisioning cotton sheets getting shredded up, but I don't know where it comes from, and the fibers are so short that after a year you get a tear in them and they shred.
Right.
Right again. So, where does China or Vietnam or wherever these were made get all this recycled cotton?
Mainly from the cuttings of the factory floor.
Okay,
So
it's not recycled, it's just
It's almost repurposed. It's almost repurposed. But what they do is they shred it down, which is why you have short fibers. They spin it again. And you might have a, half a centimeter fiber with a 2 centimeter fiber, and that's why you'll get pilling, and that's why you'll get holes or whatever. But it typically comes from the industrial side, not the post-consumer. So post-industrial is easy because it's like, we know exactly what it is that's coming out of this factory. It doesn't have all the buttons, it doesn't have all the screen printing and all of that sort of stuff. So it's pretty easy. No zippers, exactly. The post-consumer is the big problem, to be honest. And that's what we're focusing on. Like this, you could throw anything in that.
That's post-consumer?
This is post-consumer.
So it's got,
Let me back. I don't know if that's actually post-consumer or not, but it can be post-consumer. Right. Yeah.
like threads,
Thank you.
nails and all kinds of stuff from the pallets.
Right.
So you're,
And that's easy. Metal's easy to separate. Is you can use magnets. It's very easy to separate metal from waste. The harder thing is separating the different materials, and also like things like plastisols, inks, buttons, things like that. Metals are probably the easiest and are the thing that needs to be extracted first.
so really when it's recycled cotton, it's just post-factory waste.
Exactly.
It's not like they're taking old pants
No.
from the thrift store.
Right.
Before they were wasting all that.
Right.
Right.
So it is a, yeah.
Before that was just going straight.
So it's like making ground beef at at the
But here's the problem
leftovers.
with it. And I love how you brought up the pilling aspect, right? Or the holes. The most sustainable we can be is just not buying stuff, right? The most sustainable we can be is not buying what's on that rack. Or the second most sustainable thing is buying something from a rack and keeping it in your wardrobe for the rest of your life. That's true sustainability. So then you can incorporate, okay, is this sort of how they're processing this? If this is an inferior quality, you've now spent a lot more in energy, in wastewater, and all these things to create something that now is inferior that might have a shelf life of a quarter of what it would have been if it was virgin. So then you put patches in it. That's brilliant. That's exactly what you should be doing.
But soon I'll have
Yeah.
an outfit inside your outfit.
I think that's a great look, personally.
Thank you.
I think that's interesting too, because I think sometimes in the kind of online discourse when it comes to sustainability, I'll see sort of an emphasis on morality over practicality. Well, they'll be like, because this material came from this thing, you shouldn't wear it. But if it already exists, you should probably utilize it to the point where it can no longer provide anymore, and then just not buy it again.
Yep.
And that's where it's kind of, I think sometimes the smart conversation gets a little bit short-circuited. So it's good to kind of know how to purchase more thoughtfully in the future, but it doesn't mean you have to go throw out all the bad mistakes of the past.
Right.
Awesome, man. Oh, go ahead, Shane.
So some people buy textiles for like utility or because they're conscious, and there's some people who buy for signaling and expression or luxury even. And sometimes like there's people who are interested in what you're doing, and then there's going to be like where you can have most of that. I guess you're looking to like find that over that. How are you thinking about like what you're making in terms of like that long-term TAM, like making more overlap between who you know is already interested and where you could have impact?
I haven't really researched TAM. That's always been a part of my business, decks and my pitches. That's total addressable market. So what he's asking is like, how big can this market actually be, right? Like when I look at business decks, almost every entrepreneur is like, if I get 1% of this TAM, then this is gonna be $1 billion company. I wanna be sold in every Home Depot. I'm starting with Dover Street Market, and everybody knows about that Dover Street Market. It's one of the most premium, elevated, high fashion retailers out there. The only reason why I'm doing that is because I'm trying to create interest from the bigger, broader distribution. I think what I'm offering here, if I'm blending something that is utilitarian, lasts for a very long time, is worn by the best craftspeople and artists in the industry, that could permeate the market in a very, very deep way. How big is that? I don't know, stance at the time when we built it. We thought, hey, this could be a $50 million company. It became much larger than that. And I think that was because there was so much white space, and there's not as much white space in what we're doing here. Like we would go into retail and there'd be 50 pairs of shoes on a wall and no socks. And it was like very easy to get in, right? We had 10,000 doors, you know, like that. And those are really hard yards. So I can't answer that question specifically, but my objective is to be in farm and feed, hook and bullet, you know, Lowe's, like all of these big accounts, and hopefully gain a decent amount of market share. Carhartt is $6 billion. You know, I think we could do something even bigger than that if we actually were good and got a shit ton of luck. You know, that's how I think about it. Sorry, I don't have an answer directly to that.
No.
I really don't know.
2 more.
Felting fabrics is a crazy industry because you get these bags that shred after you use them twice, or those disposable shoes kind of thing. And to make felt stronger, you've got to have it pretty thick. So I'm confused how your felt is going to be used in fashion.
Yeah. So we're using felt right now to replace polyurethane. So actual like bag material. We're doing our duffel bags out of it. Yeah, we actually have a partnership with MIT where we have multiple knitting machines there, and this is our 2nd year. We've worked with them for 2 years, focusing specifically on felt. And what we've identified with felt, as long as it's the right composition, you can actually form hydrophobic, meaning like water sort of repellent materials. So it's not just insulation. But you know, there are certain constraints. Like we know now that we can take a wool and we can actually make it hydrophobic through heat and pressure. Nylon, all of the polymers, all of that works as well. So having the right composition actually would change things chemically to ensure you get the benefit that you want. For us, we're replacing foam, we're replacing insulation in jackets, we're making actual bomber jackets and whatnot out of it. We're coating it with silicone. Aprons and other workwear as well, flame retardant type materials with felt as sort of the base with just a coating. There's a lot that you can do with felt. The binder is really important because that's how you create the durability, not just by layering more and more layers and punching them together. Yeah, and most of that can be done, as I mentioned, with heat and pressure.
Thank you.
Of course.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, thanks a lot for all the wisdom and insights about textiles. And
Oh.
I'm not thinking about textiles. I know a lot about leather.
Yeah.
And my question is, I like the idea of purchasing for sustainability, right? So I'd like to purchase clothes that sort of last a long time.
Yeah.
But you mentioned LVMH. And when it comes to leather, LVMH is garbage.
Yeah.
And their leather quality is extremely bad for the price of truck pay. There are a lot of American, for example, Italian canneries and companies that produce incredible leather for like fresh price. With great design. And I know how to choose that.
Yeah.
But I have no clue how to choose quality textiles so that I can purchase for sustainability. Again, price is more indicator, right? So how would one go and track like the source of the textiles to, you know, make that decision to buy more stuff?
Yeah.
Just wasting money.
As a consumer,
Yeah.
how does one track
Yeah,
the textiles?
that's great. That's like if I go to the produce, I don't really know how to tell a ripe watermelon from a not. Like, what
Right.
do you look for as someone that knows the materials when you're looking at a garment? Do you like smell it? Do you like rub it around?
yeah,
Like,
well, of course, like
yeah, yeah.
right. It's absolutely touch. It's hard because companies don't really tell the consumer exactly where things are coming from, but more and more are. Patagonia actually does a really good job at this, probably the best. I think it's really important to tell that feedstock story. Just a quick example, I think what inspired me to create FutureStitch, which in the beginning was this big facility that was the #1 eco-rated knitwear facility in the world, geo-powered, really interesting, that we built in 2019, was after I went to a Apple supplier, and this was during, I think, iPhone 8. And I saw how they were manufacturing it, and I asked all the engineers who were also making Samsung and others which phones they were using. And this is a very Android culture, right, China, and they all pulled out iPhone. And I asked them why, and they said every single peripheral within that device has the tightest tolerances, with the actual raw material being designated from the source, like from the extruder, from the grower or whatever, not a grower, but you know what I mean. So I think there's a lot of power in that. I think you get much more high quality material if you do what you're talking about, if you go source up, and I'm talking about it in terms of supplier, and I know I'm not answering your question as a consumer, but I think the consumer actually cares. And there are more and more people that are talking about that. For me, it comes down, honestly, to how it feels in my hand and how it drapes. And if I know where it comes from, origin's really important to me. And it's really important to us, which is why we have factories everywhere, including in California. It doesn't mean like buying stuff from China is actually, a big problem. Actually, there's some really high quality stuff that are coming from China. In fact, like how we're doing some of our products, we're doing some of the cutting in China, but then we finish it here. And instead of saying like made in China this small, we're doing a full dragon, just like we're doing an eagle, made in USA, where it's like, hey, you can get quality materials from everywhere. But I think talking about it through product marketing actually is quite valuable and increases willingness to pay in almost every study that's been done. Other than that, I think it's really challenging. I don't know how to identify good leather from bad leather, except for maybe the thickness and by smell. Yeah. That would be a challenge for me with textiles. It's really, I come down and I touch it. I look to see what the fibers are doing. Like, if the fibers are coming up or they're coming down. Pilling is a big thing. How much balling occurs when you're rubbing your hand across it. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Taylor.
Guys. Thank you so much. Thank you.
That was awesome.
Thanks, sir.